Hello, Snugglebugs! Welcome back to our Hearthstone video for the month of July. Where we're going to start with our card review for Murder at Castle Nathria. Today, we're going to be reviewing all of the cards for the Druid and the Demon Hunter. So now that all cards have been released, I thought I would take some time, make a few different videos about the different class cards, and then one video probably for all of the neutrals, which will probably be a little longer because there's a lot of them. But without further ado, let's get into it. So yeah, first up, we have Sinful Brand. It is a 1-mana epic spell that brands an enemy minion. Whenever it takes damage, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Personally, I think that depends on how good this card will be. Will depend on sort of the meta that it's in. If you can brand an enemy minion that has, say, a lot of health, and then do sort of a bunch of 1 damage chip, either with token minions or like little 1/1s, which we'll see is coming in to play. I think some more 1/1 token generating minions for Demon Hunter could mean that you effectively are turning the enemy minion into the Hydra of old, the 5-mana 8/8 that damaged yourself when it took damage. So I guess, again, depending on the meta, it could be good, but I think usually Demon Hunters prefer to be a bit more aggressive in their stance, so they'd rather have a 1-mana minion to play, or, the weapon, or Fury, as an example, for Fell Demon Hunter. But we'll have to maybe wait and see what the meta looks like when the expansion goes live. Next up, we have a 0-mana rare spell called Dispose of the Evidence. Give your hero +3 attack this turn, and then choose a card in your hand to shuffle it back into your deck. So there's a few other things in this here about removing things from your hand or emptying your hand out for extra bonuses, which we'll also kind of get into as the further we go. The fact that this is 0 mana, gain 3, you do lose a card in your hand, which could usually be obviously a bad thing, but a 0 mana finisher, as an example, could be really important. Or if your opponent gets a really important, like a 3 health minion out, as an example, early, this allows you to have, even though it costs a card, a 0 mana swing turn. So I actually think that this is going to be very powerful, even if, like I said, it's not Fell, but even if you include this as just you've already played everything else, it's effectively potentially 0 mana, deal 3 damage to your opponent's face, which can be used as a finisher, if not anything else. And I think we'll definitely see play. Next up, we have the Magnifying Glade, which is a 3-mana 2/2 weapon, but after your hero attacks, you draw until you have 3 cards. So in looking at the last card we were just looking at that empties your hand out, and again, there will be more, this becomes potentially a 3-mana draw 3 cards at the very least the turn you attack, and if they're all cheap enough and you play them again the next turn, it's almost potentially a up to draw 6, which is crazy, especially in a hyper-aggressive deck. I do think that in the right deck, this card could be what sets it over the top. You play all your minions to be aggressive, your opponent thinks that they've cleared your board so that they're good, and then boom, you play Magnifying Glade. First of all, it's just 4 additional damage over 2 turns with the weapon, which is great in a hyper-aggressive deck, but then also draws you more cards, gets you more options to play, and to be even more aggressive. And so for that reason, in the right deck, I think this is going to be extremely powerful and extremely important card to potentially even keep in an opening hand, let's say. Kind of on the same boat as that weapon, or to go along after, like turn 3, play the weapon, maybe draw this card, which is a 4-mana 7/7 Crixus the Voracious. Crixus makes me think of Spartacus, but is where I think we're gonna see where the play comes in, right? Because you can attack, draw your 3 cards if this isn't already in your hand. This is, say, one of those cards. You play it as a 4-mana 7/7. Play it, discard your whole hand, then re-attack with the weapon that you played the last turn, draw 3 new cards. This potentially dies if they have to spend a lot that early in the game to kill a 7/7, draw 3 more cards. I think if this is in a deck where, say, the 4 mana, the high end of your aggressive deck is a 7/7 with that weapon, forget about it. I think aggressive Demon Hunter, honestly, to me, depending, again, I know we have to wait and see what the meta actually looks like, but I'm predicting this to be one of the top decks for sure. And to go along with that weapon and the theme of shuffling things back in your deck to empty at your hand for said weapon, we have the Bibliomite, a 2-mana 4/4 crazy statted minion. Correct me if I'm wrong, my memory, I don't believe we've really seen, we've seen a 2-mana 4/5 that can't attack, but I don't believe we've ever seen a 2-mana 4/4 with an effect like this. And you get to choose a card in your own hand, you shuffle it back into your deck. Again, is a terrible effect normally, losing a card in your hand to get advantage on the board, but with the hope of potentially having the weapon to play on turn 3 right afterwards, getting rid of it out of your hand doesn't matter. That's why I said that weapon is super important in that deck, at least in my opinion. And with that, again, Bibliomite might just be played in almost any form of aggressive deck. Losing one card with the amount of draw that Demon Hunter has might not actually affect you that badly. But yeah, I think this is going to be very powerful, likely to see a lot of play. Now this is where we're going to get started on our relic discussion. Now I don't necessarily know exactly how the improvement works. I'm assuming in this case a 2 mana deal 1 damage to a random enemy minion twice, improving it. Don't know if that means it's going to do 2 damage or to 3 minions. I'm assuming it's going to be 2 damage to the minions. I'm sure someone's already proven that right, or proven which way that works. But so this is a relic, and there's going to be other cards, I'll jump into those quickly, that are relics, and they all sort of do that with each other. So a 2 mana deal 1 damage to an enemy, random enemy twice, not great. If it starts doing 2 damage, pretty good. Once you start playing multiple relics, and this upgrades to doing, say, 3, 4, maybe even 5 damage for 2 mana 2 different times, relics is definitely going to be a slower game plan, I believe, for Demon Hunters, but going to be a fun one. And here's another relic that may make Skull of Gul'dan semi come back into it, if you will, into the meta in a sense. Relic of Dimensions is a 5 mana, draw 2 cards and reduce their cards by 1, improve your future relics. If you, say, play the card that I just showed, before you play this one, you would draw 2 cards and reduce their cost by 2, and then by 3. So by turn 5, if you've already played 2 or 3 relics, you're going to be discarding the cards you draw by a handful. Now it's only 2 cards, not 3, like Skull of Gul'dan. But again, if you draw another Relic of Dimensions after you've potentially discounted this one by 5, you can cycle them through, and it's going to be some massive card draw and advantage. Relic of Phantasms is another relic. Is a summon 2/1/1 spirits, improve your future relics. And this one I'm pretty sure has already been confirmed that the little fleeting spirits, what gets upgraded is not their stats, but will in fact be the amount of spirits that you play. So if you've upgraded this like 5 times and it becomes, I guess you probably have to upgrade it 6 times, you could summon 7 1/1 spirits for 3, which is amazing, to be honest with you. Not to mention the fact that all relics improve each other means that even if it's a semi-subpar card, which it obviously is, 3 mana for 2 1/1s, all it takes is playing 1 or 2 subpar cards, and all of a sudden they become great cards. So we have to wait and see if the meta is slow enough for you to play those and have a couple of slower turns in comparison to build up to those late game payoffs. The legendary, this legendary for Demon Hunter, Artificer Zymox, apologies if I butchered the way that's pronounced, is Battlecry, Discover, and Cast a Relic. So you get to discover 1 of 3 of the relics that we've discussed, and then you get to just cast 1. And I believe if your relics have been upgraded, it casts like the upgraded copy version. And casting them also then it increases the potency of your future relics from that standpoint. And then Infuse 5, which this is the first card we're reviewing here with Infuse, means that if 5 minions on the board died while you're holding Zymox, it activates the infused version. Yeah, Infuse, sorry, I'll open up here. Upgrades in hand after X friendly minions die, so in this case 5. And then there's the infused version, just making sure that it was showing up on my screen. And yeah, this one, you just cast all 3. So it becomes an 8 mana, 8/8, cast 3, presumably upgraded relics. I actually think that even in a non-relic based deck, some of those relics are just so good that you may want just a 8 mana, 8/8 Battlecry to play 3 cards. Like, play 3 relics. In a relic deck, I think this is just going to be crazy good. I'm excited. I actually think the aggressive Demon Hunter will probably see more play, but I'm more interested in this relic one. And that being said, we'll hop into the last card for the Demon Hunter, which is the Relic Volt. So I saved this for last here because this is the location. So location is a new card type coming to Hearthstone with Murder at Castle Nathria, and what the locations are, they take up a minion slot on the board. They cost 3 mana. They last for, you can use them for the amount of times it's on the durability. Unless there's certain cards that say to destroy them, which we'll get into reviews in the next little while, probably, potentially, that have those effects. Opponents can actually attack these with minions, and every turn for a 0 mana cost, because you've paid it up front, you just get to activate the effects. So you get to choose. So before you play a relic, you go activate my location card to make it so my next relic casts twice, and that could be really big. Again, if we're looking back at that Relic of Dimensions, if you have it upgraded to the point where you're drawing 2 cards, discount them by 5, and then upgrade relics, you're going to be drawing 4 cards, decreasing them all by 5, and then upgrading your future relics a ton. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's going to be fun. I think it'll be a little slower, and I'm going to be interested to see where Demon Hunter can potentially take this, but I am excited and I hope it works because, I don't know, it's just the idea of your deck getting better the more you play it kind of thing, and in a sense, just seems very interesting to me. Those are all the Demon Hunter cards to be released. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what your opinion is on the Demon Hunter, but I'm going to go look at the Druid cards now. First up for Druid, we have a 6-mana 7/6 called Death Blossom Whomper. Battle Cry, draw a Death Rattle minion and gain its Death Rattle. So, I mean, first of all, you'd have a decently statted minion. Of course, 6/7 would be preferred. That's a battle cry that's draws card, which honestly is good. I think, I know I've personally discussed with some people that drawing a single card when it's attached to something can be the equivalent of, say, 1 mana. So effectively, you could look at this as like a 5 mana 7/6, really. But then it's a tutor, so it tutors out specifically a Death Rattle minion, which could come in handy if you have specific minions you want to add. And then this gains its Death Rattle. So if there's any really good Death Rattles you want to put in your deck, or Death Rattles that summon big minions when they die, which some could be coming out in this set, you play that in your deck, you draw it with this. It gives it to you in your hand, and it puts it in play, as well as the Druid location, which I will get to at the end, is something that goes really well with Death Rattles. Now we have a 4-mana 3/2 Widowbloom Seedsman. Now this card is another draw card attached to it. It tutors you out a nature spell and gain an empty mana crystal. So this is a new ramp Druid tool, which I personally think Druid already has a bit too much ramp in it. That's my opinion, as well as the fact that it actually draws you. I think a 4-mana 3/2 that gains you a mana crystal would be played probably as is, to be perfectly honest with you, but the fact it draws you a nature spell, which in of itself are the other ramp spells or nature spells, just makes me feel that this card is going to honestly push ramp Druid or big Druid over the edge, back to maybe where it was before. It's not quite as good, obviously, as Overgrowth. Maybe a little bit better in some cases because it comes with a body, only 1 mana crystal, but draw a card and give you a little bit of a board presence. Yeah, this card I think was going to be played in almost every version of Druid deck. Speaking of cards, it's probably going to be played in a lot of different versions of Druid decks. Convoke the Spirits, a 10-mana Druid spell that casts 8 random Druid spells, targets chosen randomly. Kind of like Rune of the Archmage, except of course it doesn't always target your opponent first. Most Druid spells tend to be either healing or buffing minions and stuff, though. So this one, weirdly enough, could be a little risky. Just because if your opponent has a board, there's not as many board clears in Druid as there are in Mage, so this card, as good as it is, actually plays the risk of buffing your opponent's minions. Therefore, actually seems like a card you want to play when you already have the board presence. You're already ahead on board, therefore it's kind of like a win more style card. That being said, with Guff in the meta, you have, say, 20 mana, you do something to clear your opponent's board, like Raid Boss Onyxia, it leaves you with a few minions, clears their board, then you play this and buffs up all your stuff. That's probably, I think this card will be seen play there, but I don't think it's quite as good as some people are saying it is, for the reason that I don't think the Druid spells are quite as good at pushing and countering your opponent as Rune of the Archmage. But, that being said, here is a new Druid spell, an 8-mana Nightshade Bud. Choose one, discover a minion from your deck to summon, or a spell to cast. So, if of course you're playing a big rampy Druid, where say you have the big Death Rattles like the guy we looked at before, or that spell that we just talked about, for 8 mana you can effectively try to find those and play it or summon it, cheating out a 10 mana minion or 10 mana spell, which also means that this could be played off of, off of Convoke The Spirits, which summoning then from your deck, it could just cause a cycle of crazy effects to happen. So Arbor Up was a card that I had discussed at great length on the channel that I was super happy was leaving the meta, and in my top 5 deck video for the month of July, I had noted that the deck was still doing relatively well without it. Well, here is a nature spell called Plot of Sin for 3 that is summon 2/2 Treants. It's not bad, really, even for 3 mana. I mean, it's not the best play in the world. However, infuse 5, which remember means that 5 of your minions die, that you summon 2 5/5s instead. And if you play this in that nature tokeny Druid deck that's already performing pretty well today, it's probably not unlikely to have 5 minions die if your opponent's coming back at you pretty well. And summoning 2 5/5s for 3 is just like that's just such good value for the amount of mana it costs. That being said, again, the fact it doesn't buff your minions, say like Arbor Up used to, it is really good. So I'm not gonna say it's not great, but again, I think it maybe will have that awkwardness where a lot of people, if you play a token deck, you're gonna want to be super aggressive, which means you're not gonna want to wait for 5 minions to die. But if you're playing late game, it'll take you long enough to get like the 3 mana 2/5/5s isn't really as big of a deal if you're playing a 10 mana try to win the game play. So I think this, weirdly enough, might feel awkward. I could be wrong, but I kind of hope I'm not, because I'm glad Arbor Up is gone, and this is semi-close to it, other than not buffing your other minions. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes when it comes out. A sort of new Book of Nature, I think the card was called, but it's 1 mana, Planted Evidence, discover a spell, and then it costs 2 less this turn. So unlike the Book of Nature, which I'm going to keep calling it, that would make it so your next spell forever costs 1 less, this does 2 less, but only if you play it this turn, which means it might not be as good super early, but if you found like Moonlit Guidance, you could cast that on 1, or Cold Tooth Mine, which a lot of people play right now, and Prestor Druid as an example. You could then try to play that on turn 1 if you discover it. It's only the card you discover as well. So I think this will be played. I think that, especially with the nature tag, means it can be drawn out with the Widow Bloom Seedsman. But I don't think it's quite as good as the book, and for that reason, I don't think it's going to see as much play. As a later game card, weirdly enough, it actually makes more sense, because if you have mana to play, you can discover a spell and get out of a situation. One of the cards I'm the most excited for, at least in the Druid pile, is, this is going to butcher this super bad, Cecily of the Fae Court. This is an 8 mana, 8/8 taunt, Death Rattle, draw a minion, and then reduce its cost by 8. So again, if we're thinking playing big, beefy Death Rattle Druids, the first card that we looked at, you can kind of see him off to the side there. That makes it so you draw a Death Rattle and you gain its Death Rattle. Imagine gaining this Death Rattle. You draw it, first of all, which is good. Then you get a Death Rattle that when it dies, you draw another minion, reduce its cost by 8. You can play it, and it's just potentially a cycle of drawing cards and playing them, and then some mana cheat, obviously. And I think there's definitely some good possibilities with this, and I look forward to playing it myself. I think Death Rattle Druid would be an interesting twist on the big ramp Druid, and I'm looking forward to giving it a go. Now, the nature spell deck that we talk about, that's kind of going good right now, that's seeing a little bit of love with some of those nature spells, may want to play this Topior the Shrubagazer. Shrubagazer? That's I'm terrible with that. Look at him with his rose beam there. This is a 7 mana 5/5 battle cry for the rest of the game. After you cast a nature spell, summon a 3/3, a whelp with a rush. So it just basically adds a 3/3 with rush to every single nature spell in your deck. Honestly, even if you aren't playing a cheaper deck, this could, again, be a big minion you play that's not Death Rattle, but it gives it so if you are playing some ramp or other nature spells just in your deck, I don't know what the magic number would be to get a good return on investment, but like just playing this, your guff 7 mana 5/5 doesn't sound as bad if you have 20 mana compared to other decks that might not want to play this. But giving you that extra bit onto your nature spells at the end, I think is gonna definitely, people are gonna try to make it work. Whether it does or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm hopeful. I think it'll end up being very powerful. And here's another nature spell that might go into that. Natural Causes. So this kind of plays into all of the things combined that we talked about. It's a nature spell. It deals a little bit of damage, and it summons you a token. So you can use it as like a small, I forget what the card, Flanking Strike, used to be for Hunter, where you deal damage to a 1-drop. Let's say they play Iron Deep Trog on 1. You go Natural Causes. You destroy their Iron Deep Trog, and you get a 2/2, whereas a lot of decks tend to just hit it with like a quick shot or whatever it might be to kill it and not do anything in return. And I think this deck's going to see play in all kinds of Druid, because it's just something that helps you survive early. It's good in token decks because it gives you a token when it spawns. It's a nature card, so it goes really well with our dragon fella here. And with that, yeah, I think this is just this to me is will be one of the highest played cards in Druid, just because it's going to go in every deck. Hedge Maze, the last card for Druid, one of the ones, this goes why I'm excited for the Death Rattles. This is a location card, so as mentioned, you play it down, it stays on the board, you can activate it, just trigger a friendly minion's Death Rattle. So imagine you have that 8/8 that when it dies, draws your card, reduces its cost by 8, just in play. You can just activate this to draw a minion, reduce its cost by 8, more than likely you don't have too many minions in your deck that cost more than 8. You might have some, Druid does, but maybe not. So then you get to play it for free. And again, say we're talking now, you play the legendary, the 8/8. Sorry, I forget his name. It's the long one. You play that, you activate its death rattle, it draws you the 7/6, it then gains a death rattle from your deck. And it just crazy. The crazy turns that this can get if you get late game, I think. But that's it. That's it for the Druid and the Demon Hunter. I am excited to play almost all of those cards, actually. I can see 4 decks already out of those 2 for each class that I'm excited to play. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.